Hey guys, Emma again. This is number 3 in this series. I've had a bit of a think about this base, and ideally I'd like something nice and square that I can screw onto something or as part of something, or even something that might even go in a little steamboat or something one day. So a round base isn't going to do it for me, and I had a bit of this 10 by 20 brass extrusion left over, so what I've done is just set it up and machined each end in the four-jaw. We've covered all that, and you should still have your Jenny legs still set up. They were still on the right setting, so I've marked the centre of that and 3 points, and what I'm going to do is just put that on there and put 2 holes to bolt it down, and that'll make a nice little base. So that's what I've done. I'm going to set this up now and bore the middle, and probably I'm just going to use the centre drill and the drill press and just spot them so that they're nice and distinct. We're going to bore that out to fit that. It wants a little bit of nip on the end of it, so it doesn't. This spigot doesn't want to stick out of the hole. It only comes through about that far, so we're going to have to counterbore it or something there. So that's probably the easy way is just to countersink it, but I think I might have a counterbore there, so we'll do that. So let's set it up. So same deal again, I've set that up pretty close. We're not working with hugely fine tolerances here on these sort of bits. In fact, this whole engine's really not that critical in a lot of ways. The things that are critical are the bearing fits and parallelity in the moving surfaces, but this is fairly straightforward. I've set this up. I've just reversed 2 jaws so it sits down in there nice and square, and set him up with a centre or a collet between centres. So that's the base. I've miscalculated there a little bit, and that's just a fraction too loose, but it's really not going to worry it too much once it's bolted down. It's going to be nice and square on the 4 surfaces there. So that's what that looks like, and we've got the cylinder to go on it already, and it's starting to look like a little steam engine. The next bit, I guess, is the thread to go in the back there. I've cut a bit of 4mm stainless here, and stainless steel rod is a couple of thou under, which is probably not going to matter too much there. It's probably going to run a lot smoother like that. That's quite a good fit there because my reamer cut right on size, and this is drawn on the drawings with a thread on this end for a nut. So 4mm, the same size as the rod, and on this end something a little bit smaller to screw in against a shoulder. Now that's not a bad idea there. If you have too much any thread in this bush, you're going to find that it's going to chop out pretty quick, so you don't really want to do that. And the shoulder's probably the best way to screw it in and make it tight and square and so that it looks good and it's going to work. So this drawing says that this is 27mm long, providing this is 9mm thick, so you have to adjust that. Now, I think this is probably 10. Nope, it's only 9mm. So if we cut this 27mm long, I might put a thread on one end first. We put a little thread on that end. We've got a 3mm button die and a tap, so we might just thread that 3mm and about 4mm long, just screw in there, and we'll cut him to length and it's only a bit about that long, and thread the other end. So the next bit's the nut. This is to personal taste. It says it's 13mm, the drawing says 13mm diameter and 6mm long. I was thinking maybe I'd make it out of just a piece of hex, but it's too easy to bump and come unscrewed, and it's a bit sharp and it just doesn't look right. So I've just machined a bit of a radius on the end with like a chainsaw file is probably the best for that, just a round file, and cleaned that up. It's got to be tapped 4mm, so I'll drill it and tap it, and we'll put a nice knurl fitch around it with the dividing attachment. So we find a drill. This wants to be a pretty good thread because they do tend to come loose. So we'll just send a drill it. Like that. And slip that out. And put this drill back in as a pilot drill size. A bit deeper won't hurt again, less likely to break a tap. We've got our 4mm tap all ready to go. And that's threaded. Look, depending on what your lathe is and how the drive system is, don't try that at home. I sort of know what this lathe will do and I put it together myself. And that was just one of the little side benefits of having a VFD and flat belt drive. But a V-belt drive lathe, you'll break a tap for sure. So just be a bit cautious of that. The best way to put a tap in is just with a tap wrench. You've got a centre hole in this side, and if you put a centre in the tailstock and set him in, just give him a twist and adjust him as you go. Bit of pressure on the back and a bit of lube, and you'll tap a hole nicely. That's the best way to do it. I warned you. Don't say I didn't tell you. So what I've done, set this tool up. It's just an angled square. It's a triangle shaped cutter. It's on nice and even and on centre there. And we're just going to scratch in some lines across there to sort of put a pattern on there to get a grip of. There's a index wheel here that's 54 teeth, and I reckon if we go every 2, that'll give us 28 teeth, which probably won't be far wrong. If they look a bit coarse, well, we can go in between, but in the second row there's 54 teeth. If we put that one on there, and that's starting to cut nicely. So if we wind him back out and go two holes and have a look at that. We're going to have to go a little bit deeper, or we're going to have to put one in between. I'm a little bit inclined to put one in between. So I think we're nearly right away round now. It's a fairly warm day here, and this is pretty hard work really, but that's not cutting there now, so I think we're all the way round. We'll slip that out of the way and we'll have a bit of a look. That looks good. Scotch-Brite pad there is probably the best thing to clean that up. Well, sorry about that guys, I ran out of camera battery. But I finished that nut. All I did was part it off a little way and then touched the edges with a file and parted off the rest of the way and cleaned it up on an emery board. So that's the 4mm nut, 6mm long and 13mm diameter. If we have a look, there's the knurl. That'll be just the thing. I've run a tap through it again and cleaned up the ends. Everything looks pretty good. So that's another part finished. I also took the time to find a screw for this. I've just put a 4mm Braco in there. It did stand up a little bit proud there, so I've filed the top of it off, but it's underneath. It's all good. So that's the stand all put together, and the base and the frame. So next job, I've chucked up a bit of that 4mm brass, and I've had a bit of a look around. I found a 3mm tap and 3mm die, so what I'm going to do is just machine that down to 3mm and thread it 3mm, and then cut it to length and turn it around and face it, and thread the other end 4mm. So he said in the drawings this only wants about 2mm of thread. I don't like the look of that much. There's about 5mm there, so I reckon 3 would be a good safe bet. I've put the diamond tool holder in again, and we've still got the 3-jaw on. And that should run, on my lathe, that should run well and truly close enough to thread that. It just needs to be concentric in the right diameter. So I've chosen 3mm there because that's what I've got. I've also got 8 Whitworth and 532 Whitworth, and I've got probably 8 BA too, and any of those would do. But it's nice if you start on one thread system to sort of finish with it, so that's what we're going to use. So I've cut that off with a hacksaw, and that wants to be at least 25mm past this end of the shoulder on the thread, so I'm just going to clean the end of that up. It wants a little bit off it maybe, not a whole lot. So that's the piece, and it just needs a thread on the end of it, and we'll do that next. So the job to do next is to drill and tap this to match the pin. It needs to be on centre, it needs to be parallel, and it needs to be halfway along. That's pretty much the only real requirements. It doesn't want to break through. So I'm just trying to think of a way to do this. There's a couple of ways we could set it up and do it. One is that we could put it in the 4-jaw again. We get him nice and square and flush and set him up, and that's probably the best way, to be honest. Another way, we could probably make a little top hat or a drilling bush to sit on there and just drill him in the drill press and use a bush as a guide, the same diameter inside as the drill, and that'd work too. It'd get him nice and square. Another option is probably to clamp it down on the top slide and drill him like that, and that'd work too with a bit of messing around, and it's not a huge deal to sort that out and get it right. So in the end I set that up in the 4-jaw and drilled and tapped that. It all looks pretty good, and I put it in with a bit of Loctite and that won't hurt anything. So that's that job done. And that's probably, I think, the most straightforward way to do it. I could have set it up on a saddle or on an angle plate or all sorts of ways, but that was easiest and quickest. It took me about, I think it's a difficult job, and I messed around with just a piece of tool steel for a straight edge over the top of the jaws to get it nice and parallel, and then set a centre up between the centres like we did before, and got it pretty sweet, and drilled it and tapped it very easily. So that's the way I did that, and there's probably other ways to do it, and you'll find a better way to do it, but that's how I did it. This wants a good clean on the face here. Just to take the burr off it. And that goes together like that. If we have a look at this, which will be the moment of truth. If we have a look at that, that's pretty jolly sweet there, so I'm going to be happy with that. And that's another part done. So the last job on this is to run a thread on the end of the pivot, which is M4. If you use the flat of the drill chuck and wind the jaws back in, if you've got a decent drill chuck, you can usually keep it pretty square like that. A little bit of cutting oil won't hurt. Remember every turn or so to back it off a little bit to clear the chips. It says it wants about 10mm thread on it, so once it's started, it'll run on pretty straight. That's about 10mm of thread. So our last job has been to run a thread, an M4 thread on the end of this pin. That's the pivot pin. It's M3 on this end and it's M4 for 10mm on that end, and it's 27mm long. This screws in here, and to be honest, we could probably nearly Loctite that in now. And there's the nut which screws on that end. So that all goes on the stand like this. And I've had a dig around in the scrap box and found this spring, but it's a little bit big and it's a little bit long, so it's not really the answer, and I have to have a bit more of a look. But I will find one. But if we put that on there like that, that's how it works. So look, that's the pivot, and thanks for watching, guys, and more soon. The next video I think will probably be the bearing, and appreciate your interest.